Hey, Cub fans! Welcome to Cubs 24/7. Thank you for joining us today, where Randy talks Cubs with delight and optimism. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Cub reliever Lee Smith, Hall of Famer Lee Smith. And I kind of feel like Lee is a little bit underappreciated at this point in time. I think maybe there's some reasons for that, but I think it's important that we spend some time talking about Cubs reliever and Hall of Famer Lee Smith. I always refer to him as Big Lee Smith. That's what everybody called him. And he was drafted by the Cubs in 1975, second round out of high school in Castor, Louisiana. Big guy, 6'5". They listed him at 220. During his playing career, he was 250 or better. But drafted as a young 17-year-old kid out of high school, and debuted in 1980 as a 22-year-old. So he had about 4 years working his way through the minor league system before he popped into the major leagues. And he was a starting pitcher throughout his minor league career. And his Hall of Fame career as a reliever almost didn't happen. When the Cubs moved him into the pen, he took it personal. You know, back then, pitchers who were good start, and if you couldn't start, then they put you in the bullpen. And things are different today. I mean, back then, that one-inning closer wasn't really a thing. All of the specialists out there, a game in the 60s or 70s, if you could knock the starting pitcher out in the fifth or sixth inning and get into that bullpen, that was sort of the recipe for winning a game. So understand that Lee Smith, when he got moved to the bullpen, took it as a demotion, and quite frankly, he took it personal. So he packs his stuff up and he goes home. He leaves AAA, goes back home to Castor, Louisiana. And fortunately, Hall of Fame Cubs sweet swinging Billy Williams took it upon himself to go down there and get the kid to come back. So he did. Billy actually went to Lee's home and talked him into coming back. And when Lee tells the story, he says he can't tell you exactly what Billy told him, but I guess it was pretty strong. But Lee was a very gregarious person, very just a really nice man. He didn't look like it when he came to the mound. He had this menacing scowl all the time, and he had an excruciatingly slow gait. He just moved really slow, like he moved like he was almost in slow motion, and like he was sore even, like it hurt every time he took a step. And he would move like that between pitches around the mound, and he would do it coming in from the bullpen. It took such a long time for him to get in, and he always looked that way. Looked like he could barely move, and move super slow until he let go of that upper 90s 100-mile-an-hour heater. But just kind of an interesting guy how he functioned. But nasty gas, just threw the ball hard, had the curveball to go with it. But I think he struggled in minor leagues with his starting role because I just don't think he had the repertoire that he needed. And then he was tailor-made. They did the right thing, clearly. But he was tailor-made for a bullpen role and really a closer role, which is what he was from the start. He was always a closer. Just because he was just nasty. He came in and just threw really hard and had just enough curveball to keep hitters off balance. So making his way to the bullpen was obviously the way to go. Great guy, loved Wrigley Field, loves the Cubs. He used to hang out with the firemen at the firehouse across the street on Waveland, hang out reading the paper. Talking to the guys, played hoops with the guys back there quite a bit. He was a jokester, so Lee was always having fun. And one of the things that they talk about his slow, meandering gait and how he just sort of, hung around on the mound. The pitch clock today would give Lee Smith trouble. I'm sure he wouldn't like it. I'm sure he'd also have to adapt to it, but it wouldn't be something that was comfortable for him. But on a day game, if he had a chance, he would always kill some time because he had a lot of friends on the ground crew. And rumor has it that the ground crew got paid time and a half for if they're after 4:30 in the afternoon. So Lee Smith took it upon himself to buy him some time. So he'd act like there's trouble with the mound, have him come out and fix it, and just do whatever he could to kill some time to get his buddies up to that 4:30 mark. So When I think about Lee Smith, I think obviously a Hall of Fame pitcher, but just a great guy. And if you're unfamiliar with him and you want to find out more, I think it'd be sort of worth your while. So let's move into Lee Smith's career. Hall of Famer, 7-time All-Star, won the Rolaids Relief Award 3 times, 18 years in the bigs, just a stellar Hall of Fame career as a closer. I'm going to give you his numbers for the full 18, and then we'll back it up and we'll talk about his career with the Cubs. So 18 years. In his 18 years, Lee Smith finished with a 3.03 ERA. So just over 3. He pitched in 1,022 games. He finished 802 games. And he had, at the end of his career, a total of 478 saves, which at the time was a major league record. So Lee Smith broke the major league record for saves with 478. During his career, he had 1,289 innings pitched. He had 1,251 strikeouts, and he had a whip of 1.25. His strikeout per 9 innings, 8.7. Based on balls per 9 innings was 3.4. Lee had a career high of strikeouts per 9 innings of about 12.7. So he did a 12.7. He had a 12.5 one year. So Lee Smith came in throwing gas and striking people out like a closer should. His career with the Cubs, though, it's interesting. He only played 8 years for the Cubs, and we're going to get into what happened at the tail end of his Cub career. But before we do that, let's just talk about what he did specifically for the Cubs. 18-year career overall, 8 of those years with the Cubs. So he had 10 years without the Cubs. His first 8 were in a Cub uniform. As a Cub, he had a sub-3 ERA at 2.92. He had 458 games, so a little less than half. He finished 342 games, less than half of the 802. He only had 180 saves of the 478. He pitched 681 innings for the Cubs, just about half of his total. He had 644 strikeouts of his 1,251, and his whip was identical. His Cub whip, 1.25, is identical to his career whip. For the Cubs, he struck out 8.5 per 9, and he walked 3.5 per 9. So Cub numbers pretty close to what his career numbers were. And with the Cubs, he was a 2-time All-Star, 7-time overall, so 5 times away from the Cubs. He was an All-Star in 83 and 87. He had an ERA of 1.65 in 83. That was his low point. So Lee Smith was getting it done from age 22 to age 29, 8 years with the Cubs. Was doing well. He's 29 years old. I just don't know why Jim Fry traded him, but he did after the 87 season where Lee Smith was an All-Star. Lee Smith was an All-Star in 87. He's 29 years old. He was clearly as good a closer as we had in the game. And for whatever reason, Jim Fry traded Lee Smith to Boston for 2 pitchers you may or may not have heard of, and if you haven't heard of them, it wouldn't surprise me at all. One is Al Nipper, and the other is Calvin Schiraldi. So, in 1987, season's over. Lee Smith is an All-Star. He's just coming into his prime as a closer, and Jim Fry traded him. It's inexplicable to me. I just don't know why. And once they traded him, Lee Smith went on to be an All-Star 5 more times. He added just short of 300 more saves and 10 more years. He had a stellar career. And 2 or 3 of those years were his best years with the Cardinals. So he moves on from Boston. He pitched with the Cardinals and just had a great 2.5, 3 years with St. Louis. I'm not upset about it, though. I'm not bitter, as you can tell. But let's see what we got in return. All right. Everybody got Lee Smith. We didn't. We got Al Nipper. Well, in 1988, Al Nipper for the Cubs went 2-4 with 1 save, pitched in 22 games, and he was gone. He was out of baseball. Gone. That's it. Done. Oh, yeah, I think he pitched for like 4 more games for somebody and got hammered. He was out of baseball. Al Nipper. Huh. How about Calvin Ciraldi? Well, Calvin did a little bit better. He pitched 2 years for the Cubs. He went 12-19 in those 2 years with a 4.19 ERA. And then what happened to Calvin Ciraldi? He's out of baseball too. So in Cub history, everybody talks about the Lou Brock for Ernie Broglio trade, which was hideous, clearly. But I'm going to sit here and go, that Lee Smith trade, I just don't get it. The Brock trade, the leadership was still unsure what Brock was going to be. I don't know how you can trade Lee Smith at 29 years old, coming off of what he just did in 87. He was an all-star, and you trade him for 2 guys that literally were out of baseball within 2 years. I mean, that could be worse than Lou Brock. It certainly is up there. So it's a point of contention with me. I'm still a little raw over it. I don't understand it. An explanation was never given to me what the thought process was, but it sure turned out incredibly wrong. And we had to watch Lee Smith just have 10 more years of probably not dominance. He was probably dominant for another 7 years, and then sort of tailed off those last 3. But to trade Lee Smith, a Hall of Fame closer, in the beginning of his prime, it just made no sense. So I don't understand it. But that's Lee Smith. Great Cub, great guy. It wasn't his fault they traded him. And I just wanted to spend some time talking about his career. I'm going to drop down a video for you guys in the description. There's 2 of them that I think you might want to see. If you haven't seen Big Lee Smith pitch, I think you'll enjoy the video. So I'll put 2 links to 2 different videos that I think you'll like. Get to them when you want to down on the description. So there's Big Lee Smith. Guys, thanks again as always for joining us here on Cubs 24/7. Really enjoy talking to you guys about Cubs in all forms and fashion. We'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Meantime, go Cubs go.